Well, good evening, everyone. Again, welcome. We're so glad you are here. We are delighted to have with us tonight Dr. Tina Payne Bryson, who's going to be talking to you about her new book, The Way of Play, Using Little Moments of Big Connection to Raise Calm and Confident Kids. My name is Charlene Margot, and I'm co-founder of nonprofit The Parent Venture. We are again very happy to be here tonight. Please join us in a really warm welcome for Dr. Tina Payne Bryson. Take it away, Tina.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you tonight. And I know how it's a challenge when you've been with kids all day, you've worked all day, you have a million things to do, and it's dinner time. I'm also in California. I'm in Southern California near the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. And the fact that you're showing up tonight or later, maybe watching the recording, it is evidence of what a commitment you have to parenting. So I'm just really, really honored to be with you tonight. So I'm going to share here my presentation, and I'll just remind you that you can kind of make my slides bigger or smaller by how much you kind of toggle where the lines are on your screen. I am going to start by talking about, first of all, I have three boys who are 25, 22, and 19. My youngest just went off to college, but I'm not quite an empty nester because my college student is doing what many college students do these days is move home to the basement while they look for work. But I have had a long history of play, and I will tell you that play is just as important in the middle childhood and adolescent and young adult period as it is in the early years when it comes to our relationship with kids. I think play and the way that we play with our kids is crucial in terms of brain development through these early years particularly, but really even throughout the young adult years. And so I really tried to facilitate play a lot, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Sometimes I hated playing with my kids. Sometimes I found it so boring. Sometimes I felt like if I had to slam two superhero guys together one more time, I was going to lose my mind. The rough and tumble play, like I often found it really, really boring. Or I felt like I had so much to do that I was just trying to get through it as fast as possible. And what's really interesting is that we have some misconceptions about play as parents, even those of us who have studied it and really it's our profession. And that is that we think of play as something to do to pass the time when our kids are little because it's what they want to do most and it's just a way to get through the day. But actually, there's an incredibly rich thing that happens when it comes to play. And like I said, play is important even in the older years. And I'll be certainly talking about that tonight too. When we move into play and playfulness, and that's just as important, particularly we're talking about as development unfolds. And I just realized I'm talking really fast and I know we have translation happening. So I'm just going to monitor and modify a little bit here. That really being playful and playing with our kids allows us to dive into their world in ways that help us understand them in ways we cannot without play and playfulness. It really is their very first language. Maybe nonverbal communication is their first language. It's their second language, but it's certainly their first language that comes before words and talking. And so play is, and I could spend 7 hours talking to you about what the science says about the benefits of play. You know it's really important. It impacts every aspect of development, including their identity, including spiritual development, cognitive, social, emotional, behavioral, sensory motor. I mean, coordination, many, many, many pieces of physical development as well. But here's the issue. It is endangered. And I cannot believe we are at a place in history where professionals and educators are having to defend the importance of play for development. Now, many parents coming out of COVID, and in Southern California, we obviously had all the way around me, we had many, we've had thousands and thousands of people impacted by loss of home from our fires. The school where I've worked for 15 years is gone. Several of the people who work for me at my Center for Connection lost homes. And so we are sitting in this adversity of COVID, and we could list many, many other areas of adversity that we sit in now in our country and in our world. This is even more reason why we need more play. But kids get less and less play from decade to decade. Kids get a lot less play than they did 15, 20 years ago, and even less than 30 or 40 years ago. So play is not only essential, but it's also endangered. Now, why would you care about it so much? Obviously, you care about your child's development, but there's something you may not know, and that is that play builds the brain. Now, there's a part of our brain, some of you might be familiar with my book that I wrote with Dan Siegel called The Whole Brain Child, where we do the hand model of the brain. And the way I teach it to little kids is to say, make a five, make a four, and hug your thumb with your fingers. And excuse my terrible manicure, it's been one of those months. Um, and basically, we say it sits in your head like this, and the lower structures of our brain, the brain stem and the midbrain, this is the part of our brain where we have big feelings and we just want to do something. And then this part, the cortex, or the higher parts of our brain and the outer bark of our brain, and particularly this part in the front called the prefrontal cortex, this is the part of our brain where we can pause and make calm, kind choices and be a problem solver. But sometimes when our emotions get really big or we just have an impulse to do something, it's like we flip our lids and it's hard to pause and make calm, kind choices. And it's hard to be a problem solver. So we can teach that to little kids. But I want to talk about this prefrontal cortex. It is going through massive building and connecting all throughout childhood. You probably know that the first 6 years are where the most brain development happens. Guess when the second biggest period of brain growth and development happens in terms of how it's built and restructured? It's actually from age 11 for girls and 12 and a half for boys up through the early 20s. And this part of the brain is under massive reconstruction during the adolescent years and doesn't finish building until the mid to late 20s. What does this part of the brain do, and how is it related to play? Well, you see the list here. It basically regulates the body and emotions. It helps us make calm, kind choices and be a problem solver. It helps us feel empathy and be flexible and adaptive. It helps us understand ourselves. It helps us, plan and be mindful, and even in morality is a big part of this part of the brain. So this part of the brain, behind the orbits of your eyes and in the front of your forehead, is most influenced by the repeated experiences we have. And it's really the foundation for not only social and emotional intelligence and academic excellence, it's the foundation for mental health and having successful relationships. So, this is the part of the brain we really want to pay a lot of attention to. And I'll tell you, two of the hugest impacts on this part of the brain are: number one, your relationship with your child. That's a whole other talk from my book, The Power of Showing Up. But we know that kids who have positive, predictable caregivers who mess up, but who repair when they mess up, and who are really showing up for kids in ways that help them feel safe and seen and supported when they're having a hard time, and who continually show up for them, this part of the brain develops optimally in those kinds of relationships. The other thing that has a huge impact on this part of the brain is play. And one of the reasons for that is obviously when you're playing, and we're going to talk about some strategies, is that let's, for example, say if you want to play with your parent or your sibling or your friend, and you want them to do, like, you have something in your imagination, you've got a whole like dragon scenario happening, and you want them to go along with your plan, you might have to think about how they might want to play. You have to use words, sometimes made up words about made up concepts. You have to pause and wait for the timing of the other. You also can't get too mad and totally lose control, because then no one will play with you. So, really, these things that happen are things that in play force them to use this part of the brain over and over and over. And we know that what fires or gets activated in the brain also wires in the brain. The other reason that play is so crucial for building this part of the brain and supporting development is that play and playfulness are actually opposites of being in a threat state. Let me say that a little bit differently. The brain is either in a receptive place where it kind of uses all those prefrontal things in the whole brain child. We talk about that being an integrated brain, and where our upstairs and our downstairs brain is working together. But when we're in a receptive state, we're curious, we are ready to learn, we are building skills, right? But when the brain is not in a receptive state, it's in a reactive state. So it's either receptive, ready to learn and explore and play and be creative and resilient, or it's in a reactive state where it's more like a threat state where we're really just acting out of reactivity. Okay. So this guy that you're seeing on the picture here is a man named Jaak Panksepp. And I know it's kind of gross to see a man holding rats with such a happy look on his face, but he is known as the rat tickler. And when Jaak was alive and doing this work, he actually would be able to track that rat pups play, and they actually laugh. Who knew? And he would track their play. And what he found repeatedly in his science, and lots of other people have replicated it, is that when a threat is introduced into their environment, like a cat hair, not an actual cat, but a cat hair, the rat pups stop playing. And they actually have a really hard time returning to the same levels of play. It's like they can't be kids anymore. They have to be more hypervigilant for the threats in the world. So one of the things that that tells us is that when we use play, or when we play, or when we are playful and laughing and delighting in something, it's actually armor against and pushes back against these states of reactivity and threat. So play states and threat states are incompatible in our brains and in our bodies. So the more we bring about play and playfulness, particularly when things are difficult or our children are having a hard time or we are having a hard time, that's when we need it most, because it helps us stay in more integrated states in our brain and helps us be less reactive. Now, one of the things I want to just talk about just briefly before I get into the strategies is that there are kind of three ways to think about kinds of play, many, many kinds of play, but let's categorize them into three categories. The first is free, unstructured play. And this is where kids are with friends or playmates or siblings or on their own, but there's no adult directing them. There's no adult interacting with them. They have a roll of duct tape or they have found a stick and they are just doing whatever like their imagination tells them to do. So free, unstructured play is fabulous for kids, and kids need a lot more of it. And there are a lot of books about that. The other type of play that would be the opposite of that is adult directed play. And this is like what we would see in athletics, right? Like a coach that's directing what's happening. It might be playing a board game where there are rules and boundaries, and we're kind of guiding things. Or it might be where we're playing with kids, but we're totally in control of the play. We're telling them what to do. And those things all have their benefits, but kids do a lot of those in the name of enrichment and other kinds of things. But there's a type of play that we see less and less, and it's so important for building relationship, for building skill, and for building the brain. And that is parent-child or teacher-child. So let's call it adult-child play. And it's where it's child-led, but the adult joins in. And that's the kind of play that the book, The Way of Play, is about. Now, when I talk to parents, they'll say to me, I want to play with my kid, but I hate doing it. Or they'll say, I want to play with my kid, but I don't know how to do it. Like once I get on the floor, I don't know what to do. Or that my kid tells me I'm doing it wrong. Or I want to do it, but I don't have time to sit down and do it a long time. So what The Way of Play is a book full of strategies that can be done in seconds and minutes that you can do in the car on the way to places, or ideally in 10 to 15-minute increments, even once or twice a day, that give kids tremendous benefits. Now, when kids are younger and they don't have as much language, one of the things that we know is that sometimes kids can't say it, but they can play it. Now, don't overread your child's play, because if I tried to do an analysis of my son's play, I would have been worried they were sociopaths, and they are not. But the way that they would play oftentimes really was like, wow, that I gave you that baby doll so you would learn nurturing, and you're trying to figure out how much pressure it takes from the door to crush its head, right? I didn't grow up with boys, so watching my boys play, I was like, you all are foreign aliens to me. Um, I'm seeing some hearts float up. Thank you for identifying with me. So don't overread and over and analyze your children's play. But when kids play themes out over and over, they are often trying to make sense of things. So that's really helpful. And I'm going to make sure and tell you about how I use playfulness with my older boys, and how I use it in my own life, because as grown-ups, we need play too. But let me talk to you about a couple of really specific strategies. So the first strategy is called think out loud. And the point of this, it's so simple, because y'all, we're tired. We don't have a lot of mental energy to come up with some really cool imaginative play fantasy. I don't have it, and I bet a lot of you don't either. This is something you can do without a lot of brain power. What you're doing is you are saying to the kid out loud with your words what you see them doing. Okay? And what you're doing is you're making guesses based on what you see happening. And what that does, it's so simple. When I say it to you, you're going to be like, what is that even doing? But what it does is that as you narrate and help bring out loud what they may be thinking and planning and experiencing, you give them language that goes with their internal state, but you also help them understand, like, my grown up understands me. They get my mind and what my intentions are, and all of those things. So I can start over time understanding my own thoughts and my own feelings and my own intentions. So here's an example. You see, here's a little kid looking like he's building a ramp, and the dad simply says, looks like you're building a ramp, a jumping ramp for the car. So you're really just kind of like talking through the steps. So here you see first step is just listen, observe, take in what your child is doing. So he sees the kid starting to build, and the dad says, a ramp for the car? Looks like you're building a jumping ramp. And the kid says, yes, it's going to be the best ever. So all we're really doing is thinking out loud. Now, this is called, in some circles, sportscasting. You've heard of this, right? So maybe you see two kids who are like fighting over a toy, and you say, it looks like you both want the toy, right? So sportscasting is kind of saying what you see, but think out loud goes a little bit deeper, because we're not just describing what is happening on the field. Big Dodgers fan here. I know y'all are in Northern California, so it might be heretical. Sportscasting, they're saying what's happening. This goes a little bit deeper, because we're also tuning into what we think they're thinking and feeling, and we're kind of predicting a little bit more about the internal world. So oftentimes when kids start building a ramp, and I'm guilty of this too, is you're like, oh, it's not stable enough, or you start commanding, like, you need to make it higher, or that's too high, or we correct them like, that's not the best way to do that, or you should do it over here, or question them like, are you sure you want to do it that way? So really get out of the way and just kind of make guesses. And you can even ask, like, is that right, or is that what you're thinking, right? And then you might guess wrong sometimes, but that's totally okay. This here, the dad says, I bet that other building near the landing pad is the garage where the car stays. And he's like, no, that's the guy's house. Ah, okay, that's where he lives. So you're really just totally following their lead. Now you are going to get it wrong. I have this picture of this little cartoon here where these bears are outside of the tent. And inside, the parent is saying, you've got to stop thinking that every sound you hear is a bear. And of course, it is a bear. And I actually have a friend who took her 7-year-old up to the mountains, and he kept being terrified about bears coming. And she's like, there are no bears. Okay. Let's just look, there's no bears. And she opened the curtains and there was a big bear right outside the window. So we are going to get things wrong sometimes, but remember, we're following the child's, the child's lead. But what this does, it's so simple. Just say out loud what you're thinking, is that when we do this, our kid knows we're with them. Don't do this. Don't be looking on your phone while you're doing this. Put your phone down 5, 10 minutes. Give them your full presence. That's a huge part of the magic. And so the kid then knows you enjoy being with them. The kid then sees that it's possible to observe what someone else is thinking and feeling. And then over time, as development unfolds, they can start understanding and observing their own thoughts and feelings and then choose how to respond. So as we offer the words, they then over time can use their own words. So what this does is it builds thinking, it builds internal insight, and it builds communication. So I really like this one, think out loud. Another strategy that I really, really like is, this one's actually my favorite. And I'm going to give you some personal examples of how I use this. Well, actually, before I do that, let me say one other thing about think out loud as kids get older, because those were examples of like a kid building and doing pretend play. This is so powerful when you have older kids, adolescents, and young adults. And what we're really doing is kind of reflecting back with our words what we're observing. So it might be that your teenager like slams their book down, or they're kind of like throw their backpack down. And you really can just say, oh, it looks like you're having a rough day, or wow, that backpack was really heavy, or is it a little more frustration than weight on the backpack? So you're kind of again doing this idea where you're imagining their internal thoughts, feelings, experience, and you're externalizing it so that what you're saying matches what is happening for them on the inside. Again, that allows them to feel seen, understood, and it also lays the groundwork for, we share these kinds of things with each other. And what's so great is, just like when you lift weights and you do reps, you're building muscles. The more reps we give, repeated experiences we give our kids with these things, the stronger those abilities and skills get. So when you do this kind of thing, you may find that your kids and teens and young adults will do this back to you. They'll say like, are you trying to do this? Or, it looks like you're thinking about a lot. Like, what are you thinking about? You look grumpy, or you look like you have a lot on your mind. They'll say it to you. And it really is truly about attunement. So you can do this just thinking out loud and naming what you think is going on for them, or what their intentions were. And this is also a great way to provide some generosity and not criticism with kids. If let's say your 12-year-old tried to do something and broke something. Now it's easy to get mad, especially if they were being irresponsible or something. But in that moment to say, oh, I bet you didn't expect that, or I bet that surprised you when it broke. That wasn't what you thought was going to happen. Just saying something like that makes them feel like, "Oh, yeah, you get me." And there's a generosity that comes with that. With little kids, we can even say, that really surprised you, that frightened you, or that scared you. You didn't think that was going to happen. So thinking out loud is a really, really powerful strategy, even for older kids. Okay, this is my favorite strategy, bring emotions to life. And the point of this is that we are going to take whatever's happening in the room, and we're going to bring some emotion into the story. So if you're playing imaginary, you're going to introduce some feelings into your character. Or you can narrate what's happening with some emotion. So when we do this, we are expressing emotion and talking about it. So we're giving emotional vocabulary, and then we're also laying the groundwork for them to say, like, we talk about how we feel with each other. Let me give an example. So my son Ben loved tying ropes, and sometimes it was really frustrating. He would tie things so many times we couldn't get them undone. But he was a kid who was very tentative, slow to warm up, um, kind of took time getting used to things, a little bit of a more introverted temperament. Like I said, slower to warm up. But one day he was tying the rope onto a doorknob, and then he tied the other side of the rope onto the top of a castle. And he loved action figures. So he grabs an action figure, he hands one to me, and he hooks the guy's arm over the rope and he goes and he shoots his guy down, like almost like ziplining down onto the castle. And he says, "Mom, get your guy down, you got to get your guy down onto the castle." Now I could easily just go and do that. That's actually another strategy in the book called mirroring, where you just mirror with your body, face, and voice. And that's really powerful too, because they feel really connected to you in those moments. And that would have been great. I was following his lead. But now is an opportunity for me to introduce an emotional experience, an emotional problem, and see if he can solve it. So I say to him, "I'm not sure I can come down. I'm kind of scared. I've never done this before." Again, doesn't take a lot of creativity or cognitive load. I'm introducing emotions to my little action figure. So I say, "I've never done this before. I'm kind of scared. I don't know if I can do it." Now, in order for the play to continue, which is what my kid wants, he has to come up with a solution to this emotional problem. And again, my kid often felt afraid about trying anything new. So this is something I'm kind of pulling in. We call this like representational play. Or what we call symbolic distance. I'm known in my family at age 3 for saying, "The bear is mad and angry." I was mad and angry. I don't know what bear I was talking about, but kids use symbolic distance to make it not so direct. So he's got to solve this problem. So he's like, "Don't worry, I'm going to send a guy up to show you the way and he'll help you down." Okay, so now my kid, who is often afraid to try something new, has now heard me say, "I'm afraid to try something." So I've normalized that. I've also normalized asking for help and talking about it with a trusted person. And he's come up with a solution that, like, if you have somebody with you, you can be brave and do it anyway. So his guy comes up and he's like, "Come on, I'll show you." So then I follow it down and we get to the bottom. And I might leave it there, or I could say something like, "Ooh, that was kind of scary, but I'm so glad I had a buddy with me. I was really brave, and now I'm so glad I could do it. I kind of want to do it again. Can we try it again?" So I could go a little bit further, still following his lead, but interjecting some suggestions there. And so as we do this, we are either adding emotions to our character, or we can introduce them as a narrator. So in this case, the little girl says, "I wouldn't eat that. The queen put a spell on it." And he says, "Yikes, that worries me. I feel nervous about eating this apple." And especially if you have kids who deal with anxieties or even phobias, this is a great way, again, with that symbolic distance. It's frequent for us at my clinical practice, the Center for Connection, that we have in Pasadena and Santa Barbara, for kids to have phobias, particularly about like throwing up, or if they maybe choked on a little bit of food at one point, they're kind of afraid to eat, and so they'll only eat really soft foods. So sometimes when kids have had frightening experiences, their behavior becomes more rigid and constrictive. Play is a great way to introduce that. So we could even say like, the bear is kind of nervous about eating some food, so the bear's going to go really slowly and chew it up really well. Oh, that worked. I feel safe eating, right? So you can kind of just talk about feelings. Obviously, with the fires in Southern California, we're doing a lot of play with fires. Pretend play with a grown-up who is allowing emotion, especially like feelings of fear or sadness or kind of more negative emotions, to come into the play, is doing something really important. Remember how I said that play is the opposite of threat? So, in the context of play, when we introduce micro threats, like a feeling of fear or a scenario where there's something scary is happening, there's witches all around, they're chasing the dog, whatever it is, that when we introduce elements of those pieces in the context of play, it's like microdosing. It's like titrating, tolerating difficult emotions and situations and scenarios, but with enough cues of safety that then the brain makes an association like, oh, I can handle this. This is okay. I'm strong to handle this. So we're really giving them kind of the muscle to face challenges as they come. So that's pretty exciting to think about that. So when we bring emotions to life, and the way that we narrate again is just to say like how lucky that baby is to have a daddy that is so gentle with her. Okay, so that would be like you're not talking about the baby or the whatever. You're kind of narrating emotions into it. But as kids hear us accept and label emotional states and tolerate some fear and other negative emotions and scenarios, they over time learn to regulate their emotions. We're building the prefrontal cortex. But the other thing that's happening is that kind of what they're able to tolerate gets widened. So their window of tolerance really widens so that they really know they can handle more difficult things. All right. So I'm going to just hit one more strategy and then I'm going to wrap up and take some questions. Scaffold and stretch. This is a really important one for all ages of kids. Scaffold and stretch is an idea that's based on a psychologist named Lev Vygotsky. And Vygotsky talked about the zone of proximal development. And actually, I'm going to show you that here. So really, this is about building resilience and building grit and building the ability to sit in the frustration of not being able to fix something or do something well and kind of sticking with it. So it's facing adversity and being resilient, but it's also kind of stick-to-itiveness of grit. When something's really easy for them to do, that's called the comfort zone. And they don't need a lot of support. They can just do it, right? And then at the outside is the overwhelm zone. Like, I don't know how to do this. I cannot do this without support. So I'm not going to be successful. If we're in either the comfort zone or the overwhelm zone, we're not really growing skills. Where we're growing skills is in what's called the zone of proximal development. And this is what kids can do with a little bit of scaffolding or a little bit of support. Now, I'm going to call you all out on something that I'm really guilty of, and that is over functioning. We tend to over function for our children. It starts when they're really little and they bring us their string cheese and they don't have the gripper and the kind of like, tension that they can pull to open it up by themselves. And they hand it to us. And what we often do, and sometimes we just have to do it this way because we're in a hurry and we have 6 other things happening and we have another baby on the hip and then we have a dog that just threw up and we're late and all these things. You just open the string cheese. You're not doing any harm by opening the string cheese. But ideally, we say, okay, you get one side and I'm going to get the other side. How hard do you think we pull? Or we say, try holding it here. What should we try next? And what we're doing is giving them some prompts and a little bit of support, enough support so that they can start practicing doing it so that they become more independent. Now, I will tell you that I often will take something that's going on with my teens or young adults and I'll immediately do it for them, or I will fix it. And if I'm being really honest with myself, a lot of the times that I'm over functioning or doing things for my kids is not because it's best for my kid and that I'm actually supporting them. It's because it makes me feel better to do it. It makes me feel less anxious. It makes me feel less overwhelmed. So I want to challenge all of us, and myself included, to say, am I jumping in here and fixing something or over functioning because it's really the kind of support my kid actually needs? So it's not really over functioning. It's actually the zone of proximal development. Or am I doing this and it's actually not so good for my kid for me to do this, but it just makes me feel better? Now, sometimes that's okay. You matter too, okay? But I think a lot of times we overfunction because it's way easier, at least in the short term, but it actually makes them more dependent on us longer. So it's harder on us in the long term. We want to play the longer game, but we're also managing our own anxieties. So what we want to be doing is building resilience. We want to stretch them beyond what they can currently do. So, for example, my kid, freshman in college, had a medical issue that came up this week at his football practice. He's going to see a doctor, a specialist in the morning, and I live 45 minutes away. I could easily drive out there and go with him to the appointment. And he asked me, he's like, well, what should I ask the doctor? Now it's super easy for me to say, I'm going to send you a list tonight of what all the questions you need to ask, and you need to FaceTime me as soon as he comes in. And maybe that's appropriate, depending on what the medical issue is or whatever. But instead, I said, what do you think you should ask him? That is scaffolding and stretching. So now he's got to use his brain to think about, yeah, what should I ask? And then I can say, okay, yeah, I think you're missing a couple things here. Can you add these to your list? Etc. And instead of just jumping in and calling the doctor's office, I say, go talk to the trainer and the team doctor, and then let me know what the two of you decide. So I'm also communicating to him, I trust that you can navigate this, even though I kind of don't, y'all. I don't know that he totally can, but that's okay. I can call the doctor later if I need to. I want to give them opportunities to do this. So when you have school-age kids, high schoolers, they're going to say like, oh my God, I'm so stressed or whatever. Don't immediately rush to their rescue unless you need to. Maybe they're not feeling well, or there's some fragility around their mental health, or there's a learning challenge and there's some neurodivergence and they need a little more support from time to time. But I want you to pause before you jump into doing this. Now, play is so incredible because when they're little and we say, hey, like they can't hold the scissors right or whatever, we say, well, what could we try first? And they figure it out with our support. Over time, resilience becomes bigger and bigger like a snowball, so that as they get older, they have more and more confidence. So here's another example. This little girl is frustrated that her apron is knotted. And so instead of him just untying it, this dad says, let's look at it together. Where should we start? So you ask the kid to become your coach. You say, like, where should we start? Which part do you think I should pull on first? We can figure this out together, but what do you think I should do? And you really kind of ask them to give you stage directions and those kinds of things. So when we scaffold and stretch, we really want to scaffold so that they can become more independent, and then they're able to feel more resilient and stick to it. We just have a couple of minutes left. I want to say that one of the best ways to use play is to set rules and boundaries and enforce them and to get cooperation. So you can even use rules for play. So there are 3 rules of play that we talk about in the book. You have to take care of yourself, take care of others, and take care of the space. So those are the 3 big rules of play. You can't be destroying things or hurting other people or hurting yourself. Those are the 3 big rules. But when kids are pushing boundaries because they are kids, they are often doing it out of an undeveloped prefrontal cortex. They're impulsive. They have a hard time putting on the brakes. Sometimes they need clarity on the rules. Sometimes they're curious about what will happen when they push those limits. But I will tell you, one of the most important ways that you can elicit cooperation at any age is through playfulness. So I'll give an example of my high school son I'm 5'4", he's 6'1". He was supposed to have come downstairs for dinner to help me finish getting dinner ready, and he was nowhere to be found. He's not answering texts. I'm calling him. He's not answering his phone. He's in his room. So I come upstairs and he's just being sloth boy, as teenage boys do. And he's just in his bed listening to music. And so I could easily jump on him and be like, what the hell, man? You're supposed to be helping me with dinner. Like, what are you doing up here? You're being so lazy. Okay, that's fine. That's probably fine to say. That's not going to do any harm. We have a strong relationship. Um, But what I did instead was I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you didn't come downstairs to help me with dinner like you were supposed to." I'm just going to throw in a little sarcasm because I'm so tired from walking up the stairs to come and find you that I need a rest now. And I just sit on him. I just sit on top of his giant body. And I start kind of being dramatic with panning, and he pushes me off. He's like, "Mom, you're so weird." He's like, "Sorry, I was just listening. I lost track of time." Okay. So I made the point. You weren't where you were supposed to be, but there's this joining that happens when we're silly and playful. If you have younger kids and think about the biggest pain points, stopping whatever they're doing, putting on shoes, grabbing the things and getting in the car, putting on the seat belts, getting ready for bed, teeth, pajamas, getting into the bed. Homework, if you have older kids, maybe meal times are pain points for you. Whatever the pain points are, I want to encourage you to start being silly and playful and make it fun. Here's why. The brain is kind of it is the most complex thing in the known universe, but it's also very simple in certain ways. And here's what we know about the brain. What we like doing, what is pleasant and enjoyable enough, we want more of it. When we don't like something and it's unpleasant or stressful, we want less of it. So we avoid it and resist and become oppositional about it. If you want bedtimes and getting in the car and homework to be less of a battle, make it more fun. If your kid is working on some homework project, lay something out and be like, after you complete, if they have 5 note cards to complete for an assignment, after you complete each note card, I want you to come and see if you could scare me. Find me wherever I am in the house and see if you can startle me. And then they come and you ham it up. Or you're like, "Oh no, that wasn't scary at all. You need to do better." Give them a little bit of hell around it, and do that between each of the note cards. Okay, you can't do this all the time. I'm not saying this is like everything has to be a puppet show. Okay, but if there are pain points, use this for kids, for story time, or for bedtime, getting ready or getting in the car. Say this: there were these 3 squirrels, and they got in so much trouble. You're not going to even believe what they did. As soon as you have your shoes on and you're in the car, I'm going to tell you what they did. Now, you don't know what they did. You're going to make it up on the way to the car too. And it could be a stinker of a story, but it doesn't matter. There's anticipation and excitement and whatever. Same thing with bedtime. As soon as you have your jammies on and you're in bed, I did this with my 8 to 12-year-olds. We play a game of Uno, 1 or 2 games of Uno as soon as they were in the bed. They were like looking forward to it. So we can really use play to elicit cooperation. And it's so fun. You really can join. Now, as I wrap up, I want to say this. Play isn't just about what you do. It's a way of being with our children, delighting in them, enjoying them. That is magic. And my 2 girlfriends and I were having lunch today, and we were talking about our marriages. I've been married 31 years. And I said, I'm more and more convinced that being playful and laughing together and laughing at each other and being funny is some of the most important glue in a marriage, to get through all the things that drive us crazy about each other, right? So I'm just going to tell you about some of the ways that I have brought play into my life. My life's really demanding, as I'm sure many of yours are. Um, I don't know if you can see on this picture my Nespresso coffee maker. There's just a picture of it here on the slides. I was really stressed out about 3 weeks ago. Stuff at work, just working too hard. I was feeling really, really, just really not looking forward to every day. Every day I was like, "Oh God, I have so many meetings today." Like, and I was just feeling drudgery. So I had a box of googly eyes, sticky stickers. And I went around and started putting googly eye stickers on like the ketchup bottle and on, my makeup mirror and stuff. And I put it on my Nespresso, and it makes me laugh. Gives me some levity. When I open it up, it looks like the mouth opens up. It just cracks me up. I also loved stickers as a kid. This is a glittery puffy sticker, and I just keep it at my desk because it just makes me happy. Um, I use Lego guys because it makes me think about my kids, to hold cords for me. So just find some ways to do something that just makes things fun for you. Play as a grown-up is often hanging out with our friends, or doing something just for the sake of enjoyment. So make sure you're finding some play in your life too. So let me stop there so we can answer some questions. Um, so yeah,
Oh, thank you, Tina. That was so much fun and so needed in a world where things just often seem too serious these days, don't they?
yes, yes, yes. Some days worse than others. And some that I will just say that the harder life gets, whether it's for us or our kids, the more we need play and the more we need connection.
It's really true. I'm half Canadian, so it's part of the sort of cultural milieu. But my mother was known to go outside and blow bubbles. Once rode a bike
I
down
love
the
it.
street with a pot on her head. The
I
neighbors
love it.
were like, "What the?" But you know what?
I
It was
love it.
great. It was great for us kids. Right?
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
today, as you've talked about, a lot of parents didn't grow up babysitting. They didn't grow up with lots of
Yep.
siblings, and they really don't see play as something. They think it's kids' job. Like they have their job, kids' job is play. Just to reiterate, what would you say to those parents about the importance of how play really does help kids develop, both physically, socially, and academically?
I think what we most want for our kids, if you talk to any parent in any country, is that we want to have a really strong relationship with them and we want them to develop into the best version of themselves, whatever that is. And play is the key to both of those things. And so it's not just a way to pass time. It's not just a way to like get through the day. It is doing something really powerful. And what's so exciting about it is truly in 5 to 15 minutes once a day, you can get tremendous benefits. If you don't think of any of the strategies in the way of play, if you can just bring some silliness and playfulness in your relationship with your child, I will tell you, especially as your kids move into their teenage and young adult years, it is so key for staying connected. And I think if we're super over precious, like our kids, like as they get older, are kind of like, I don't really want that. But if they know they can joke around with you and have fun with you, it's just so powerful. It's a powerful way to connect. I will also say too, a lot of times the reason that if we didn't grow up babysitting, we've forgotten how to play, or maybe there are a lot of people who never got to play very much as a kid because they had to grow up really fast. Or maybe you were in charge of making sure your parent was okay. There's a lot of that. I will say your child knows how to play. And so if you don't know what to do, just follow their lead. And it's perfectly fine to ask for stage directions. Be like, what do I do next? Or they're like, walk the plank. And you're like, do you really want me to fall down? And they'll be like, yes. And then you just be dramatic. Like it might feel weird and foreign to you, but the more you do it, the more you see how much your child lights up and how much fun it actually can be. And I also want to say, if you don't like imaginary play, you don't have to do that. There might be other ways that are fun for you. Maybe you like crafting with your kid, or maybe you like racing to see who's fast. You can do lots of things. You don't have to put on, capes and pretend you're slaying dragons. But you really can just follow their lead and lean into it.
And I love, Tina, how you have said that play is important for kids across the lifespan. And that includes the grown-ups too. Yeah, that
Yes.
we're not just talking about 4-year-olds. It doesn't matter if you're 14 or 40 or 80. Being playful is still good for us, right?
Yeah. And if you feel kind of like a little bit paralyzed, like I don't even know what's fun. Like my life is so full. I would encourage you, like whether it's note cards or sticky notes, try and just think about, or it could be a document on your computer. Like, what are things you used to love to do? Like, I actually just bought myself this little pack of jacks. I'm sure I'm terrible at them, but I used to love playing jacks. So I'm going to try these out. But things you used to love to do, like riding your bike, trying to stand up, or, those kinds of things. Like, think back to what you used to like to do. But for me, if I'm like, okay, if I think about what are my most fun moments of the last month or the last few months, what are those? And literally write them down so that you have kind of like a menu of things to select. And what you should put on that list are things that you enjoy doing that aren't necessarily purposeful. They don't really solve a problem or they're not necessarily practical, but you just enjoy them. My best friend and I, we go thrifting. We love like the treasure hunt. To me, that's like my favorite way to spend, a couple of hours or a day if we can. So just find ways because you matter too, parents. And um, I think bringing bringing a spirit of playfulness into our own lives is really good modeling for our kids. Our kids, as they grow up, need to know that we're okay without them. And when you have playmates, and you have fun with your playmates, they don't hold the same responsibility to take care of you. And that allows them to be free and to not worry about you. It's a great gift to give them.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. We just had a parent comment in the chat, thank you for this. You inspired us when I really needed to be inspired. And so
Oh,
that's
thank
a gift,
you.
Tina. That's a
Thank
real gift, uh, because it's not easy being a kid always. It's not easy being a teen, right?
No, it's not. And I saw someone in here said like cheesy things are really fun for teenagers. Like go to the 99-cent store and buy the ugliest pair of socks that you can find and leave them on your kid's bed and be like, these totally looked like you. Like I knew you had to have them. Like just be weird. Like, like little things like that can and I'll say too, even as kids get older, when if they, are on like going away to camp or they're going to grandparents' house or even they're not leaving, to tell them stories about ways they played when they were little. They love that. Even older kids and young adults love those things too.
But it's really true. That's how our dad got us to bed every night, telling stories about his childhood. We loved hearing about his
Yeah.
dog, and we didn't care. It didn't matter.
Mm-mm.
Any little story works, right?
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Okay. We have had a couple of child mind specialists on tonight, which is wonderful. Really,
Uh,
really thank you for the work that you do. So
yes,
here's
thank
here's
you.
a good question. Um, the asker says, play is so essential as a child life specialist and infant massage educator. How can I get more parents in this current generation to play outside with their kids, get away from the tablets and technology?
Yeah.
I share research, but if it's not on TikTok, they don't want to hear it. What do you suggest?
Yeah. First of all, I was Charlene and Bev and I were talking right before we came on about how parents are under so much more pressure right now because with social media, we have so much information coming at us. Some of them are actually experts, some of them are not experts. But we feel all this pressure, like if you're not cutting your kids' lunch into woodland creatures in bento boxes, like you're failing as a parent. And that's just not the stuff that matters, right? If you have fun, if that's play for you, knock yourself out. But I think parents like we're so overscheduled, and we put too much pressure on ourselves. I will tell you that any parent who ever has come to see me for a parent consult or they're worried about their kid, almost always, my answer is more playtime, more time holding them, rocking them, snuggling with them, like slower bedtimes, slower fun meal times and bath times. Like these two things are always going to be good for no matter what the diagnosis might potentially be or whatever's going on. Um, Parents, I think, obviously being out in nature has double, triple other benefits that go on. And so one of the best things to do is give parents a couple of prompts. One of the ways I would get my kids outside, I would say the area where we live, like in Pasadena, for whatever reason, there are a lot of skunks. I don't know. So I would say, like, let's go on a skunk hunt. Or my dad was a landscaper and I love plants and things like that. And so I would say, let's go on a succulent hunt. And I would show them what a succulent was like. And I would ask them to help me be a succulent hunter. And we would go out and we would look for succulents. And so they were like detectives, searching for things. Parents often are like, what do I do if I go outside with them? Like, I guess I grab a frisbee or I grab a ball. Like, they don't really know. So I think if we can give little prompts or little ways, like almost like a menu, like I said, to get them to do it, that can be really helpful. I think a lot of parents just don't know what to do. But once we give them some ideas and they see how wonderful it can be and what a difference it makes, and then we say, this is something to prioritize, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, that's something any parent can do.
Absolutely. Parents, it's fall. If you have a little kid, they love leaf hunts. Just go
Yes.
outside. Doesn't matter if you're on a city street or out in the country, you come home with a collection of leaves. They
So
love that.
great. Yes, it's so great. And if you have really littles, one of the things I used to do is you can buy anywhere a box of like 1,000 of those paper placemats. Those like sometimes they're scalloped and they're just white paper. When I was trying to get dinner ready, I would have them make placemats for everybody. So they'd be in there coloring and making placemats for dinner. Gave them something to do. They were playing, they were crafting, and then we would talk about them at dinner. So if bath time is unpleasant, make it more fun. If dinner time is more pleasant, make it more fun. And I know parents will say to me, I don't want to do an effing puppet show to get them to put their shoes on. But what I say to you is the battles that we deal with are so much more exhausting and time consuming than pausing and saying, what could be fun that I could get them excited about going outside? Let's go look for birds. Let's find the biggest bird we can find. And you know what I mean? You have to come up with something that can be dumb. Kids don't care.
Such great advice, Tina.
Yeah.
Such great advice. Okay, so here's a question. I think that this probably a lot of parents feel this way right now. Parent asks, I'm just curious about my daughter spending all of her time with her friends, and I'm wondering if she has time for us to make any memories with her family.
Oh, this is a little bit of heartbreak for mom here. First of all, that is how it is supposed to be. I know you don't want to hear it, but our job as parents is to be the secure base they can come back to, and you're not going to like hearing it, the launching pad too. So our job is to give them the security to go out into the world. And developmentally, they're spending more and more time with their friends because it allows them to learn how to, outside of their immediate nuclear family, live with other people. This is helpful if they ever have a roommate. This is helpful if they ever decide to couple and decide to start a family, right? So this is all really crucial part of development. The more you cling on, or if you start guilting, the less she will want to spend time with you. So you have to come to a place of radical acceptance that she will be spending more and more time with friends and with peers as she gets older. Okay? That's number one. That's just, and you can grieve that. That's sad. But I will tell you, it's also wonderful because you have a lot more time for your play and for your friends and for developing hobbies and interests. What I will say is that it is also great to have rituals and routines that also prize family life. Family dinners, or they don't even have to be dinners, they can be lunches, or we do breakfast burritos at 11 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays in our backyard. And that way the boys can sleep late if they're around. You say, as a family, this is something we're doing. Family meals together as many times a week as possible actually reduces your child's risk of substance abuse. I mean, like, and a million other things. It's so, so important. So, family, maybe it's Sunday family time that everybody knows from 2 to 5 is family time. And you make it fun. You play games, you watch movies. Or you know that Sunday nights and Wednesday nights, always we're eating together. We try to do it Sunday through Thursday nights. And then on the weekends too. Friday night, Saturday nights, no way we're getting our kids to be with us.
When they're
Um,
little, though,
when
you
they're
can have
little, you
Friday
can.
pizza night.
That's right. That's right. And I love Friday night pizza night. That's how I grew up. But I think if you create these things and around holidays too, this is also helpful too. If you can stomach being friends with your kids' friends' parents, my son's best friends, we are best friends with their parents, and we all met in Little League. And the boys are so excited to come and do stuff with us because they're also with their friends. So we do like gingerbread houses every year, and the kids try to make a mockery of it. They make crack houses and they make meat houses. And again, playfulness and silly, right? So it's totally good to have those things. And then I'll say one other thing. I know we're past time. You can also stay really connected to your kids and teens and young adults by almost courting them. And here's what I mean by that. You leave a sticky note on their mirror in their bathroom that's like, I think you're amazing. You leave a tiny little gift for them, under their pillow. Baby pictures. Text them a baby picture of themselves.
I still do
Um,
that. My son's 35.
Yes, and they love it, right? And family chats. We are always giving somebody hell on our family chat, and everybody loves it, and then they pile on. But we really can find ways to stay connected, and they feel so safe as they're launching out and spending more time with friends. If they really still have roots with us, we want to really, really cultivate those and make sure that there are dedicated times, not just at the holidays, but during the week or month, if you can, to really make sure there's family time that's prized.
Absolutely. And parents, just as Dr. Bryson said, you may feel right now like they're spending all their time with their friends, but they still need you. They still want you, and you're still going to be
Absolutely.
there
You're
for
still
them,
the most important person to them. And
right?
when stuff gets real, they come to you. They
That's
do.
right. That's right. As Devorah Heitner, we used to say, if all the plans from the friends fall down, be plan C. It's
Oh,
fine to be plan
yeah.
C.
Leave the welcome mat out and sometimes keep your mouth shut, but still do that. And
Absolutely.
I love Devorah and her work. Yeah, I love
Well,
that B plan C. I love that.
thank you so much, Tina Bryson, for such an amazing event tonight. Everybody loved it. And again, just thank you for inspiring us and making us remember why our kids are fun and how
Yeah.
we could be playful and look at life in a different way. So thank you, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being on tonight and all your great comments and questions. Really a pleasure tonight. Take care, everybody. See you soon.